Episode 154. I believe achieving success in the outdoor biz is dependent upon embracing the outdoor lifestyle and learning from outdoor leaders that came before you. If you agree, then listen up for tips, advice, and hacks about growing or starting your career in the outdoor biz. My name is Rick Sayes. Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast. I'm excited for you to listen to my conversation with Kristin Hostetter of SNEWS. But first, if you're thinking about starting your own podcast for your brand or passion project, I've created a free cheat sheet outlining 6 fundamental steps for building and starting your podcast. It has everything you need to know about planning, building, and launching. Head over to ricksayes.com and download this free resource today. Fun conversation with Kristin Hostetter of SNEWS today. Kristin tells us how she got her first media job with Backpacker and all the fun stuff she got to work on, her transition to SNEWS, and we talk about their beautiful new publication, The Voice. Enjoy. Hey, Kristin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rick. How are you? Thanks.
I'm great.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. This is going to be awesome. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm sure things that aren't on the question list that we could talk about.
Yeah, sure.
So let's start off with your first exposure to the outdoors. How'd you get into the outdoor lifestyle, outdoors, if you will?
I kind of found my way into the outdoors myself. I grew up on Cape Cod, and my family was never into hiking or camping or anything like that. We were a big ski family.
Yeah, okay.
So we would travel up to Vermont. We had a place in Stowe, Vermont, and we'd ski almost every weekend from the time I was about 3.
Oh, wow, cool. That's outdoors. That's good.
Yeah. I was thinking about this when you sent me the questions to look over beforehand. And the very first time that I camped was on a 6th grade field trip to Mount Washington.
Okay.
And one of my friends unearthed a photograph a few years ago and posted it on Instagram, and it was hysterical. I had forgotten all about that trip, but then, as these things happen, you start to remember, oh my God, I do remember climbing Mount Washington and summiting and thinking how amazing it was.
Yeah.
And I just loved the feeling of being up there in the mountains. And it wasn't until after I graduated from college that I had my next camping experience. One of my best friends and I decided to take a road trip around the country right after we graduated from college. And
Thelma and Louise style?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, we started in New England, and we went south, and then we went west and came up through California, and then we started to run out of time, so we had to cut off the Pacific Northwest and head back through the Rockies, et cetera. But our goal was we drove her little, Honda car or whatever, and we were going to camp as much as possible. And I had never done this before. And so I went to my cousin who had just finished a NOLS course, and he lent me, it's so funny. I still remember this gear. He lent me an MSR Whisper Light stove.
Yep.
And a Sierra Designs clip flashlight tent, which I don't know if you remember that one, but that was a classic.
That was a classic,
tent. Yeah. Those are the 2 pieces of gear that I remember, and I think that was like a really early indication of
your future life.
What a gearhead I became, because I was fascinated. I was fascinated, particularly with the stove and learning how to work it. Because, those things, you got to clean them and setting up the tent, and still love Whisper Light stoves because they're so field maintainable, right? And if you like to tinker like with your gear, like I do, they're just really fun. So that was an amazing trip, and had a great time. And then at that point, after our road trip, I moved out to Chicago, which is where my then boyfriend, now husband, lived, and had no plans at all. My degree was in art history, which is kind of random, but I enjoyed it at the time. And I started working in a bar, working in a gear shop, and the shop was called Erewhon Outfitters.
Classic, great shop.
Yep. And
Rudy and the team, they were awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And Sean and I started taking all these road trips up to Wisconsin and camping, and I mainly started working at Erewhon because I needed to gear up, right? And I thought this is fun, and I can get my employee discount, and the culture at Erewhon was so great. I mean, I started mountain bike racing with some of my colleagues there at Erewhon, and up in Wisconsin, there were all these little races, and I started rock climbing at Devil's Lake, and we just started sea kayaking in the Great Lakes. Like we started doing everything, and started spending a lot of time up in northern Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And just got hooked, and my husband did too. And
cool.
At that point, I decided that. I started reading Backpacker, of course, while I was working at Erewhon, and I just loved the magazine, fell in love with the magazine, and started fantasizing about having a career writing for Backpacker, and I could travel. And and then one day I opened the front of the book, and they were offering this workshop, this writer's workshop up near Lake Superior.
Okay.
And they were offering a scholarship to this workshop, and it was being taught by a couple of their editors. And and I thought I'm going to apply for this. And so I did, and I got the scholarship, and I went up to this course. I believe it was like a 10 or a 12-day course.
Wow.
And 5 days were spent sea kayaking in Lake Superior in the Apostle Islands, and then 5 days were in the classroom. And if I thought that I wanted to pursue that as a career before that trip, I came out of it just completely fired up. Because,
sealed the deal.
Yeah, I mean, I met these editors. I talked to these editors. I heard about their passion and their, and their travels. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And I had also a few months before that started a master's program at DePaul University in writing. So I got a master's in writing. And so I was able to get credit for that nature writing course and apply it to my master's. But at the time I was also taking a magazine writing course. And the thing that we were learning was the art of the query letter, right? And it's kind of a thing of the past these days, because so much stuff is done on social media, and that's how a lot of writers connect with editors. But
I'll bet you use those skills to like, for me getting guests, that's the perfect. I need to learn about the query letter, because that's how you get people to get excited and say, oh yeah, I want to do that, right?
Yeah, particularly if they don't know you, like, right? If it's like a cold call situation. And so part of the assignment for this class was write a query letter to your magazine and actually pitch an idea. And so I started bombarding this editor that I met on this trip. His name is Tom Shealy, with a query letter every week. I had more ideas, and he was really kind and generous, and he would send me back these typewritten on his typewriter rejections, one after the other. But he would always tell me why, like, well, we just kind of covered this, or you're a little bit off here. Our audience is more interested in this. And so finally he said yes to an assignment. And so I got this little, like 500-word assignment. And then I got another one. And then one day I get a phone call from him saying, hey, we're hiring an assistant gear editor. We know you're really into gear, and, would you be willing to come out to Pennsylvania and interview for this job? And I was like, oh my God, yes.
Bingo. Yeah.
And so that's how I started at Backpacker. And
that's amazing.
And I worked there for 22 plus years before I was kind of recruited over to SNEWS, which is owned by the same parent company, and focused more on the B2B aspect of the outdoor industry.
So you were at Backpacker a long time. What did you find most interesting about it? Just was the variety, or would you glom onto any one thing?
Well, I was always the resident gearhead. So I started off as assistant gear editor, and then I became gear editor. And so I managed the whole gear testing program, and gear testing was and still is a really big sort of core part of what Backpacker does, right? We pride ourselves on really thorough gear tests. I developed the, not by myself, of course, but with my colleagues, the Editor's Choice gear program back in the mid 90s. And we really kind of, we really spent a lot of time on making sure that our gear program was the most authoritative, sort of, legit gear testing.
Yeah, it was coveted. It was coveted on the design side. We got mentioned a couple times, once with Dana Design and once with Lopro, and it was just one of those coveted things. Man, if we could just win one of these things, then it'd be awesome. Yeah, that was very coveted. Good job.
Yeah, it still is. I'm sure. Still very much like that. I mean, I've talked to some people who are like, we actually design products 4-year award. It's like, wow, that's crazy. Like they're thinking about what it takes. And it was always about innovation for the most part, so it was just, I mean, I loved that part. Like I said, I've always kind of been a gearhead and loved to tinker, and that, and that was that I was laser focused on gear for
cool.
such a long time. And I think, and I loved the travel and I loved the people. And, but when I was asked to come lead SNEWS, I was hesitant at first. They actually asked me a couple times.
How'd that come about? They were owned by the same outfit at the time?
Yeah, well, so our parent company is Active Interest Media, and we own also ski and climbing and Warren Miller Entertainment and a whole bunch of other brands that are in healthy lifestyle.
Bunch of cool podcasts too.
Boating, yeah, we're getting into podcasting, and so Active Interest Media bought SNEWS. I want to say like 10 years ago. They actually asked me a few times to come switch over to SNEWS, and I was always kind of hesitant because I loved my gig at Backpacker. I loved my travel. There was something really sexy about working for a consumer magazine, and I said no a few times, and then finally after 22 years I was just like, you know what, it's time for a change. Anytime you're you're in something for that long, it's you got to shake things up a little bit. And so, and they thought, oh, you've been in the industry this long, surely the transition to B2B will be easy for you. It was really interesting because it's so different, right? Like, I was in that, very different, been in that industry for so long. I thought I knew everything.
But totally focused on the consumer.
Right. So very quickly I learned that I knew nothing, right? Like I knew nothing. Suddenly I'm talking to retailers, which is this whole sort of, constituency that I'd never talked to before, and talking about business and really kind of zooming out to the 40,000 foot level on the industry. And so that's been about, 3 years now. And it's just, I mean, it's the learning curve on switching to B2B has been so fascinating and so fun. And
well, you had some good experience though. I mean, you worked retail, and it was probably a big learning curve, steep learning curve, but at the same time, a relatively simple transition, no?
Well, I guess there were parts of it that were simple, and
you had the relationships, and you had some of that,
part of it was learning to trust myself too. Like, okay, I do kind of know this business,
right? Yeah.
I know some things about this business. I have a lot to learn, but anytime you're in an industry for a long time, you kind of you become part of it. So, and that's essentially what we want SNEWS to be is the place where the industry kind of comes together to talk about and hear about and learn about all of the issues that are impacting us as an industry.
And it's kind of been that way since it started. I mean, you guys have done I think the transitions over the years of SNEWS have maintained that philosophy and that content, which is great. I mean, it hasn't shifted gears completely. It's still what it was pretty much, which is good.
Yes.
Yeah. And you mentioned that all the SNEWS content from here on out is free. Why is that? And what does that mean for readers?
Yeah, I mean, that was a fairly big decision that we made about a year ago. And historically, the business model for SNEWS was a subscription-based model, and so there was a lot of content that was locked behind a paywall.
Right.
And
we used to pirate copies of that thing back at A16. Exactly. Who's got one? I'm going to make copies.
Yeah, I know. It started off as a little one sheet. It was printed on yellow paper, so it couldn't be Xeroxed, I think.
Right.
Yeah, there's some great history there. But, we started to, in this day and age, we're so digital, and people, for the most part, I mean, unless you're like the Wall Street Journal, people expect to find content online free.
Yeah.
And so we started really thinking about, what can we, if we put all the content in front of the paywall, we can really expand our audience and and expand our message. And so that was really important. I mean, again, digital, this is a digital only site. And that's how you measure success, right? Is your audience and your reach. And so it was important that we grow that.
Right.
And we figured that this would be a good way to do it. Now, of course, that was a bit of a risk because that was our revenue model. So then, it kind of becomes, okay, well, how do you make money? I mean, you're a business, you got to keep the lights on. And, Yeah, and digital banner ads is not really a thing anymore, right? Like brands aren't spending a ton of money on digital banner ads. It has to be something richer and something more meaningful than just a banner that people, we're so accustomed to seeing them. I mean, how many times do you go on a site and there's a banner there, but it doesn't even register because you're scrolling past it.
Don't even look at that spot anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, your eyes go somewhere else immediately.
Right.
And so go ahead. How did you figure that out? How did you change the revenue stream?
Oh, well, we just kind of, one of the things that we started, talking about was native sponsored content because, in B2B stuff, I get 25 press releases a day, right? Everybody's telling me about why their new initiative, their new product, their company is amazing and why we should write about it. And, it started to occur to us that, these brands have stories to tell and we would love to tell them and we can tell these stories, but they should pay for us to tell those stories too. Right.
Yeah,
like there's,
they should contribute. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, again,
it's like a free ad.
It's not that, that we don't do tons of news stories and editorial content, but if a brand has a message that they want to convey and a story that they want to convey, one way to support those messages is through native content. So I started doing these brand profiles about a year ago, and really, by the way, I knew nothing about this, right? Like it's not like sponsored content was a new thing. I mean, it's been around for a while, but I said, okay, well, we're going to treat these articles just the way we treat a regular article. In other words, we're going to hire our best writers. We're going to edit them thoroughly. We're going to dive in and research, and we're going to spend time really telling these stories, not just kind of, slapping something together. And actually the first couple ones I did were kind of like that. And I learned very quickly, it's just no one reads it if it's, so
they can
we
tell,
kind of
see right through it.
Yeah. So we started really investing, time, energy, editing in these brand profiles, and I think it's turned out some really good ones, and the clients have been happy, and then back to those banner ads, and then of course you package that with banner ads and with social posts, and so you create this little mini campaign about this brand.
Menu of stuff, right.
And then suddenly you have something that's of real value.
Right. That's great. And that's pretty successful, I take it.
Well, we're working on it. Yes.
Good.
It's definitely getting some traction, and I think the more we do, and the more we can sort of point to ones that were successful, brands are saying, "Oh yeah, I could see us doing something like that." So
very cool. So tell everyone about the SNEWS Leadership Initiative. You guys have rolled out a number of them, the Sexual Harassment Survey, Plastic Impact Promise. I signed that one. Thank you very much. Retail College, Salary Survey, which is a good one that recently dropped, and Cool Shop Award. Those sound pretty cool. How have they been received?
So far, so good. And some of those are really fresh and new. The Salary Survey we just launched last week.
This is last week, right?
And and same with the Plastic Impact Promise. And maybe we'll start with those. The Salary Survey is part of a big package that we are putting together for issue 2 of The Voice, which is something we should talk about that, our new print, our print trade journal that we just launched at the January show. But it's certainly, we couldn't find any real good current data about what we get paid in the outdoors, and everybody wants to know where they compare, right? I think, it's kind of funny for a long time. Yeah, exactly. You find out and you're like, oh my God.
Wow.
But, the funny thing is that all of us virtually are in this industry because we love it.
Right.
We're passionate about it. It's a passion-based industry.
Right.
And so, I think it'll be really interesting to see. Does that mean just because we love it, does that mean that we shouldn't get paid as much as the next guy? Like probably not. So,
a customer service job or a sales job or a marketing job is a marketing job, whether you're marketing the North Face or you're marketing Bayer Ashburn. It's still a marketing job.
Yeah, so I think I'm interested to see where I fall into the realm. So it's a pretty comprehensive
the
survey,
podcast is still a passion project, so I know where I fall.
Yeah. Well, it'll be good because we're going to slice and dice the data that we get in many different ways. So we'll be able to see, based on your experience level, or based on your education, based on your ethnicity or your gender or your job title, where you fall into the general mix. And we've already got almost 1,000
wow, that's awesome,
people taking the survey. So
great.
I want to quadruple that. I want to.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
So if any of your listeners out there can take the time to take that survey, it takes about 5 minutes. And,
drop a note.
The more data you have, the better these things always come out.
So are these going to be a combination of surveys and call to actions? Like the plastic impact promise was more of a call to action, right? Get everybody to sign and let's not take plastic to OR, those kind of things.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that, that I've kind of been stewing on personally for a long time.
Me too. I go to that show and it's just like, God, there's so much plastic.
Yeah, I know. And it's hypocritical of us, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
This is, our industry is all about sustainability and fighting climate change. And I know single-use plastic is just one small part of it, but, it kills me when when I walk around OR, and 9 out of 10 booths that you go to for a visit, they say, "Oh, can I give you want something to drink?" And they offer you a
bottle of water,
bottle of Poland Spring.
Exactly.
It's like, God, we got to do better here.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And so I just kind of, I kind of thought, let's see if we can, I mean, I know I'm not alone in feeling this. Let's see if we can, start a movement and encourage people to bring their bottle to OR and to use it and to reject single-use plastic.
I love it. Yep.
And so that's what the impact promise is. And we're just asking people to click on it, read it, sign it, and then, and try to, just kind of galvanize around this issue. And then the other thing that we're doing is we're reaching out to brands and to exhibitors. And we've already got a bunch that are super psyched about it, brands like Camelback and Stanley and United by Blue and Adidas.
Right. Perfect.
And I have a bunch more calls about this week. And they're also committing to not bringing plastic into their booth.
Excellent.
They're committing to providing water stations where people can refill. And, and our hope is that, the show floor this time around is, filled with water stations at every other booth where people can tank up.
That'd be great.
So, I mean, again, there's so many things around a trade show that are, that you can pick on. In terms of heating a trade show or flying to a trade show.
Right. Going to and from and all the show. It's no end of sort of, and nobody's perfect. I mean, we got to start somewhere though. I agree.
You got to start somewhere. And I feel like single-use plastic is just a no-brainer.
That's
like in this day and age, we shouldn't be allowing it at our industry events. And there are some shows and festivals in Europe that are already banning it and moving towards a zero waste, event model, which I think, wouldn't that be so cool if we
that'd be
could
awesome.
Be like, the first industry.
And Colorado's the perfect place, right? I mean, there's a lot of places around Colorado that you travel to that are supporting this already. So that's great.
Yeah. So it's exciting, and I'm fired up about it. And a lot of the people that I've been talking to about it are fired up about it too. So hopefully we can, like I said, we can kind of start a movement and make an impact.
That's awesome. So let's talk about The Voice. The Voice is new. The first issue was awesome. What was the overall feedback like?
Oh my God, it was so good.
Yeah, cool. Great.
Yeah, it was really, really encouraging. I mean, we put that magazine together in 8 weeks from the day we decided to launch it to the day that it dropped at day one of the winter show. And we SNEWS for I think 9 years. We were hired by Outdoor Retailer to produce the daily.
Right.
And it was awesome. It was really fun. I did it for 3 years, and
that was both print and digital, right?
Yeah, we made a digital version of it too. Yeah. And it was high energy. It was really fun. It was cool to show up at the trade show and work with the team and ship that thing off to the printer at 5:00 every night, and then see it landing your doorstep at 5 a.m. is like, I've never worked in a newspaper environment, so there was something about that daily that was really really exciting and fun. And then, but right before the November show, which was the last cycle of dailies that me and my team produced, we were informed by the show that they were not going to renew our contract, and that they were going to bring it in-house, and use the team that they have in place to produce their magazine. It was a financial reason. It was purely, I mean, it made sense for them economically to using the same, efficiencies and things like that. So it was a bit of a sucker punch.
Yeah, I bet.
It, it kind of took us a little bit by surprise. It was definitely part of our business model. And so we were like, gosh, what are we going to do here? And we, we pretty quickly hit on the idea of producing a print magazine that drops at the trade show, and certainly is not in direct competition with the daily, because it's not a daily. It's obviously, I mean, you've seen it. It's like a premium.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's
premium
nice
magazine. Yeah. But the thing that was pretty cool about it is, I mean, with that partnership with Outdoor Retailer, there were some drawbacks to that, right? This issue of trade
probably a lot of things you couldn't talk about.
I know. And I try to convince myself oftentimes that, I can still remain, really independent and unbiased, and report on our industry with this partnership. But it was very difficult because, we had to, tiptoe around the issue of trade shows a lot in our
and your experience with Backpacker, you probably know quite a bit about, whoever's paying the bills is calling the shots on the content. So,
yeah, well, gosh, I mean, we could talk about that forever. I don't agree with that. That's not how Backpacker rolls. And
right. Not how all magazines roll, not how all publications roll, but that's a big part of some of them.
But I mean, here's the thing. The Daily was, and still is, it's a marketing magazine for that show. It always was. It always should be. Yeah. They don't want to be touching on controversial issues. They don't want to be, tackling, really tough topics in an unfiltered way. I mean, they're there to celebrate the brands that show up at the show and what's happening at the show. Right. And so we saw an opportunity with SNEWS and The Voice, once this relationship ended, to really dig into that stuff. And so we quickly got very excited about it. And we started working on this magazine. And like I said, it came together in 8 weeks. Amazing. It was, the support for it out of the gates was so encouraging and so strong. I mean, here we are trying to sell ads for something that doesn't exist, right? Like, that's kind of hard.
Yeah, right.
People are like, it sounds good, but geez, what's it gonna be like?
Yeah. Do you have a draft copy? Anything? Nothing?
Yeah. Well, we had a mock-up, and of course,
I'm sure
our cover, our actual cover didn't look anything like what our mock-up did. But we were able to sell it. Like, we were able to make that happen. And now, moving towards the June issue, now that we have this beautiful magazine to show, and it's full of great content, and now people understand what we're trying to do. The support for it has been amazing. So we've got a really cool issue planned for June. It's all in the works, and we're really excited to get that done and to see it. We're going to continue to do sort of the original art cover, that really nice heavy textured stock.
That's great.
And this big salary survey will be a big package in there. So
cool. Yeah. And you guys tackled a couple of great topics. I mean, what was the reaction to the REI is Too Big article?
Well, it was good. I mean, I think the article itself was really well balanced.
Well done. You see that, very well balanced.
See that cover line, and you're like, you're either going to have a knee-jerk reaction like, yes, they're way too big, or
well, you probably got a bias before you read the article, and then once you read the article, you go, well, I didn't think of it that way. Yeah.
And I think our goal going into it was, let's ask the question and let's report out the answer.
Yeah, perfect.
So we did. I mean, there are certainly a lot of retail stores that are impacted when REI moves into town, and that was kind of the initial question we asked, right? Like, we wanted to reach out to I heard that REI is opening up a store in North Conway, New Hampshire, which is a small town. Yeah. It's a really seasonal town, and they have like 3 great outdoor shops. And, it was like, how is that going to impact these legacy outdoor shops? And so that's kind of where where it all started. But, it's not that simple, because REI does so many amazing things for our industry.
Yeah.
And so it's not there's not a black and white answer to it,
Right. Well, a lot of times back in the day, I was selling to Dave Baker down at Summit Hut when REI came to town, and he said, it actually made us better. It improved our game, and that's what REI does. Yeah. They force you to, if you've been the only game in town for many, 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 many years, you have a tendency to get complacent, I would think, just as a natural state of being. Right. And then REI comes to town, it's like, whoa, we better dial up our game. So that's one of the good things that they do.
Yes, for sure.
And what about the guy that was producing the trekking poles? Wanted to build a better trekking pole. I think he went to Alibaba and found a supplier. Yeah. How was that received?
Yeah, the copycat gear story. Yeah. That was a pretty spicy one too.
Yeah, I bet, yeah.
And really interesting. I mean, I think it was, it's the sort of thing where we we have to face these issues head on in our industry, right? Because they're happening. And with the Amazon competition and all the direct sales that are impacting all of our retailers. There's a lot of gear out there.
And I mean, there's no shortage of gear from all kinds of places. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so we came across these two guys that were profiled in that piece that were essentially skipping the design and kind of knocking off proven designs and doing it cheaper. And we thought,
rip off and duplicate.
Yeah. And, again, we kind of went into that thinking, oh my God, these guys are such jerks, like they're stealing intellectual property or whatever. But the reality is, again, nothing's black and white. These are good people. They're passionate about what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're trying to provide gear for a lesser cost. Mm-hmm. But there is something that's a little icky about the similarities of the products that they're producing to the people that invested so much in the design. And
and the other thing is there's just so much of it now. I mean, there's just there's no shortage of different types from trekking poles to climbing pants. I mean, it's just like, man, are we making too much at some point?
Yeah, I know. Well, that is a big question.
Yeah, it's pretty broad.
Yeah.
So what are a couple of the accomplishments you're most proud of so far in your short life with SNEWS or with The Voice?
Oh, gosh. Well, launching The Voice, definitely really proud that we were able to pull that off, to pivot quickly and pull off something that was so well received by the industry. I mean, we've just gotten so much good feedback and notes from people saying that they appreciate, the level of reporting and the independent, unfiltered nature of the stories and the tough topics that we're tackling. So that felt really, really good for sure.
Yep. Cool. That was awesome. Can't wait to see the next one. That's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I can't either.
Yeah.
I know.
Who are some of the mentors that have helped you along the way?
Oh gosh. I mean, I have so many people who I go to for advice on all different kinds of topics. I mean, I haven't had any like real specific mentors, but but I have to think about like, that very first editor, who saw something in me and spent a little bit of time sort of guiding my pitches and teaching me how to really understand the magazine you're trying to write for and tailor your stuff towards that. His name was Tom Shealy. He was great. John Dorn is someone that I still work with today. I actually hired John at Backpacker back in the mid 90s, shortly after I started, and we worked as gear editors together. And he's now senior vice president at AIM, and he's still sort of very much someone who I consult on so many different things, but a ton of people. I mean, people like Sally McCoy always is there to offer advice. Chris Goddard of CGPR is someone I bounce things off of. Ann Kirchick, the late Ann Kirchick was someone who was always there for me. So I've been really fortunate. I feel like it takes a village.
It does. Well, it's a great tribe. The outdoor industry is such a great tribe. Everybody's pretty helpful, and it's an awesome group. I wouldn't be where I was if it wasn't for a ton of people. And how about you guys must do some nonprofit work? Who are some of the nonprofits that you support? There's so many, I'm sure.
I mean, I think, the best way that SNEWS can support nonprofits is by covering their initiatives, right? And we have really good relationships with so many of our nonprofit groups, from OIA to Conservation Alliance to Camber to POW, Big City Mountaineers, and we always try to celebrate them in the stories that we do. For sure. One of the things actually that I was excited that we were able to do is going back to that salary survey that we have out there right now.
Right.
For every person that takes that survey, that completes that survey, we are donating $1 to Outdoor Foundation.
Oh, great.
Which is the participation arm of OIA, to help get kids outdoors. So I'm really psyched about that. I mean, like
That's
I said,
excellent.
we're up to $1,000, and we're just gonna, when this is all said and done, we're gonna just make a big donation to them.
Perfect.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And our company has had a lot of involvement with Big City Mountaineers. I have not personally been on a trip, but it's on my list of things to do. A lot of my colleagues have led trips, and
that's a great group.
and done the Summit for Someone to raise money and things like that. So
that's a fabulous group. What other outdoor activities do you participate in?
So I'm actually talking to you right now from Stowe, Vermont.
Nice.
And so I ski. I love to ski, both backcountry and front country.
Perfect.
Hiking and backpacking are my absolute favorite things to do. I'm actually headed to Nepal in 10 days.
Oh wow! Awesome.
To do a really awesome trek there with some of my backpacker colleagues and some of our backpacker readers who have signed up for the trip.
Oh, great.
I love sort of the, I guess my absolute favorite thing to do is to take like a 10-day, 2-week hiking trip. I recently did the Haute route with my son, my 16-year-old son. And the year before that, we did the Tour de Mont Blanc. And great. He's my favorite hiking partner in the world. Yeah. So
he can keep up, or you can keep up with him still?
Oh God, barely. Yeah. There's nothing stronger than a 16-year-old boy.
Oh man,
it's nice. Yeah. He carries the brunt of the gear.
Oh, that's true. There you go. Gotcha. Yeah. Do you have any suggestions or advice for folks wanting to get into the outdoor biz and grow their career?
I think the best thing that you can do if you're passionate about the outdoors, and getting into the business is to just stick with it. I mean, for me, I basically nagged my way into a job, and I think if it's what you want, you don't take no for an answer, or you take no for an ansor.
But you'll learn from it. You don't turn away from it.
And you just keep trying and keep trying and keep trying until you break in, because we are a passion-based industry, and people who do the hiring in this industry, they want that.
Yeah.
It's secret to success. And so I think, so much of it is really just sticking to it and meeting people and networking and,
that's excellent. That's good advice.
That's a big thing, I think.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah. Do you have any daily routines you use to keep your sanity? Do you meditate, exercise, walk the dog?
I do. I have a yellow lab who's very active. I think mainly the thing that I do on a most regular basis is yoga and Pilates. I have a studio about a mile away from my house, and I now that I'm in training for this Nepal trek, and I put 20 pounds in my backpack, and I make the walk to yoga and Pilates. And actually, it's that's my podcast time too.
Oh,
that's when I listen. Yeah. I'm trying to listen to more podcasts, yours included, and that's the perfect excuse to.
Yeah. What are some of the other ones you listen to?
I think Outside's Dispatches podcast is really great, and cool. I listen to Channel Mastery.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Kristin Carpenter Ogden.
She does a great job. Yeah.
Yeah, and yours, and I those are the three main ones that I listen to. I'm totally open to suggestions and other ones that you like. I'm trying to make time to listen to podcasts.
There's so many good ones. There's so many good ones. Yeah, the one I listen to not regularly, but pretty frequently. It's by Tim Ferriss. You've heard of Tim Ferriss. He wrote the 4-Hour Work Week and all that, and he's just got some super interesting guests that are completely outside the outdoor industry and have some interesting concepts of how business works or how they've built businesses or, tech companies and other people that are just very learned in their discipline. It's just,
I think you're the second person to suggest that one to me. So now I have to really.
They can be pretty long though. I mean, they can go. I mean, he doesn't have. He goes for hours sometimes. And the one I recommend that everybody start with is he interviewed George Raveling, who was a black basketball player. I think he played at UCLA and he coached the Olympic teams. But super smart guy. Still, he's in his 80s and he outworks most people I know to this day. He's just phenomenal. And he starts out with a story about how he ended up on the steps when Martin Luther King gave his speech. He just happened to, be there, which was very cool. But it's a pretty long one, but that's a good one to start with. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Do you have any favorite books you read frequently or give as gifts?
I'm a huge reader. And the one book that this is my all-time favorite that I recommend to everyone is Shantaram. Have you ever read Shantaram by Gregory David Roberts?
No.
Oh my gosh, this big fat book, and it takes place in India. My husband is half Indian, and so we have this connection to India. I actually started reading it when we went over there on a family trip 10 years ago, and it's amazing adventure story, based on a true story about this guy who escapes from an Australian prison and finds himself in Mumbai and creates this life for himself, and it's just one thing after another, the adventure. It's true. It's based on a true story.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's the one that I recommend for when anyone asks me what my favorite book is. It's kind of part adventure and culture and all this stuff.
I like it.
I recently read, and I've also been recommending this one a lot to people, is The Push by Tommy Caldwell.
Oh, I haven't
Have you read that one?
Nope, not yet.
Oh my God, it's so good. I mean,
we'll link to those in the show notes. Yeah, I'll have to get both of those.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
Did he just come out with that?
I think it's a couple of years old.
Okay.
And it's he's got a really interesting story. I mean, everyone the first thing you think about when you hear his name is the Dawn Wall, right? But his journey to get to that, a guy went through some crazy stuff. He got kidnapped in Kazakhstan. And it's just and it's really, really well written. He's a great writer.
Oh, cool.
So I love that
we'll
one.
Link to both of those in the show notes.
A good old-fashioned adventure book.
Yeah, same here. Adventure stories, you can't beat them.
Yeah.
This might be a tough one for you. How about your favorite piece of outdoor gear under $100?
Oh my God! I saw that you were going to ask me that, and I've been racking my brain. But you know what? It is. This is really silly, and it's way under $100. But I am almost never without a buff around my
that's good.
head or neck. I have one on right now.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, I think, whether you're skiing or hiking or
that's a great one.
Cycling or whatever, it's just kind of such a multi-purpose piece of gear.
Yep, multi-purpose tool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
As we wrap up here, is there anything you'd like to ask of our audience or say to our listeners?
Well, I would love, your audience is my audience, right? It's
pretty
people
much.
that work in the outdoor industry and who want to work in the outdoor industry. And so, so I would love to, just encourage people to engage with SNEWS. Our website is snewsnet.com. We're on, all the social media channels. We have a newsletter that we put out 3 times a week, and we'd love to just, start to engage with your audience and encourage people to take our salary survey.
Yeah, take those surveys and sign those pledges. Those are great.
And sign the Plastic Impact Promise. That would be great.
Well, we'll link to all that stuff in the show notes, so people can go to the outdoorbizpodcast.com/episode 154 and see the show notes and click and link to all you guys. Where can people find you if they want to follow up with some questions? Email, LinkedIn. What's the best way?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Probably if they have specific questions, email's probably the best way to go. It's khostetter@aimmedia.com.
Okay, we'll link to that in the show notes too. Well, it's been great catching up with you. I look forward to seeing you at the show in a few months. And
great.
It'll be fun.
It was fun, Rick. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day out there.
Bye-bye.
Bye. If you want more of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to go to the outdoorbizpodcast.com where you find all the episodes, show notes, and much, much more. Until next time, be sure to make time to get outside.